So this is supposed to someday be our rocket mass heater of beauty for the pebble style. So for the longest time, the only way people made rocket mass heaters was cob style, and it has a certain aesthetic which can be very beautiful. But some people want a wood aesthetic. So this is basically a wood box, and it has a granite top, and it isn't finished. So we need to get the rest of the granite top to go on here. But even though it's not finished, we've been using it for the last couple of years. And it has worked better than we ever imagined it would. And our imagination goes pretty far. Originally, when we first built this, the rocket part of it was so rockety that it was sucking the flames off of the wood. And the system was burning far too hot. We were actually worried about it. So we did a bunch of things to slow the system down and cool the system down. The wood feed was reduced 35%. We added a bunch of bends and turns in the exhaust system going through the bench, and slowed down. But it still runs very hot, has a very strong burn. This house is, we call it the Fisher-Price house. It's a plastic house. It is what you call a double wide. So this house is effectively a Ziploc bag. It's sealed. And so we were really worried about it when we built it, that if all the doors and windows are closed and somebody turns on a bathroom fan, is that going to make this whole system run backwards and then suck smoke into the house? Or what if both bathroom fans are running and the kitchen fan and the dryer? Because the dryer blows air outside too. So I'm happy to report that when we run both bathroom fans, the kitchen fan and the dryer simultaneously, this thing still roars in the correct direction. And I don't know what those fans are doing, but I imagine this thing is pulling air backwards from those fans because the draw is so powerful. We believe that this system is burning well beyond 3,000 degrees, possibly. The first time we burned it, it was burning too hot. Ernie was thinking it may be touching 4,000 degrees. So we think that this is the hottest rocket mass heater known. It's got a ceramic fiber core, and it's an 8-inch system, and we think that if we could do it all over again, we would probably switch this 8-inch duct out with 6-inch duct, maybe even 5-inch duct, and make it a much leaner, smaller system, and it would still run very, very warm. Now, this system does a great job of demonstrating what a rocket mass heater can do. On days when it gets cold enough outside that it is definitely below freezing every night, I think with a conventional wood stove, you would be running a fire multiple times a day. We'll run a fire in here for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and it'll get the temperature in here up to 75. And then the next morning we get up and the temperature in the house might be 70, 72. So notice we didn't get up in the middle of the night to stoke the fire. And then the next day it might be getting down to 68, maybe 65, something like that. And that's where it's below freezing every night. And it's a very cold time of the year. This is January, and we'll have a fire every other day.
So to jump in here, because some people are going to say, well, that's just a well-insulated house.
So if you have like this exact same house and you run a conventional stove, then you'll be cold in the morning. You know, you'll get up in the morning and it'll be like somebody better start a fire because I'm not getting out of my covers. So on the next morning, you'll come out here and you put your hand on the mass, and it is very warm, maybe too warm to touch still. And so it's just exuding all of this heat, and it just exudes it around the clock. And one could debate about whether or not that it's enough heat or not, but this is a pebble style mass, and it doesn't even hold the heat as well as a cob mass does. So and it still performs very well. We have people that have had a house that had a conventional wood stove, and then they would burn 6 cords of wood every year for many, many years. And then they switched to using a rocket mass heater, and they went down to less than a cord per year. So same house, same climate, same insulation, same material for burning, same everything. The only thing that changed was the heat source. And they went down to approximately, usually the reports are a tenth of the wood. Some people report an eighth. It's very rare that somebody will report that it went down to a fifth of the wood, but even if it did, I mean, if you went down to a fifth of wood, you reduced your wood requirement by 80%. And then the people that went down to a tenth of the wood, they reduced their wood needs by 90%. That's really not all that different. So, but to go from 6 cords to less than a cord, and everything else is the same, that's a massive improvement. I would say that the number one thing, well, actually the number two thing, the number one thing is you just don't need as much wood. And when you have to go out and get that wood, I remember reading a comic thing once where it's like, wood heat's the most expensive, and it tells the story of a man who goes out and along the way he destroys his chainsaw, and his 4-wheel drive truck ends up going over a cliff, and all these things. And so that's why wood heat costs so much. But the big thing is going out and getting the wood is generally a very expensive and time-consuming and sweaty endeavor. But now when you've gone from 6 cords of wood to maybe half a cord or a little more than half a cord of wood, I mean, now you're talking about just picking up the branches that naturally fall off the trees in your yard and sticking them in the garage through the summer and the fall, and then burning them all winter, and that's all you need. You never even had to fire up the 4-wheel drive truck to go way out into the woods to go hack up a tree and bring it back in 3 loads.